Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, I know that the ranking member made a comment a minute ago with regards to Mr. Johnson's testimony saying he was tortured. I have a question with regards to calling the CFPB a service organization. I think that's a torture definition of the CFPB. Mr. Johnson, you work there. Would you call the CFPB a service organization?
Well, what I meant to express was that the CFPB's fundamental mission is to supervise institutions and enforce a discrete set of laws and rules that are assigned to it by Congress.
So it's an enforcement organization, basically.
Right, and there are many market conduct regulators, like, for instance, the SEC, the FTC, the CFTC, the Consumer Product Safety Commission, whose fundamental mission is to enforce a discrete set of laws.
Thank you.
They regulate market conduct, and they're all appropriated.
Thank you. Along that line, I'd also like to, Mr. Johnson, you work there, you're an attorney. You saw the funding mechanism that is in place right now, and I read to you out of Dodd-Frank, Section 1017, Funding Penalties and Fines. It says, the Board of Governors shall transfer to the Bureau from the combined earnings of the Federal Reserve System the amount determined by the Director to be reasonably necessary to carry out the authorities of the Bureau. In our hearing yesterday with the Fed Chairman, Chairman Powell, he admitted, because of the structure of his assets right now, he is losing money at the Fed. There are no earnings. And in fact, I asked him, how are you going to pay your bills? He said, we just print the money. And so I asked him the question then, how are you going to pay the bill that's presented to you from the CFPB? And his answer was, we'll print the money. So my answer to you is that the law says it's supposed to be paid out of earnings. If there are no earnings, can the Fed pay the CFPB bills with money it prints?
Well, I understand that there's a bill to clarify whether or not it can do that. As a fundamental
I'm asking
matter,
there's a bill to do that, Mr. Johnson. I'm asking, can they legally at this point in time, with no earnings, pay the bills of the CFPB?
I'd say an average American finds it difficult to pay bills with no earnings. I think the Fed's accounting treatment maintains negative balances.
Thank you very much for that. One of the concerns of is the CFPB has no authority over overdrafts, do they, Mr. Hempler?
They have no authority
They
over...
have no overdrafts. They have no authority over the description of service fees on a hotel bill, do they?
No.
And yet, now they've created this word called junk fees. Ms. Thompson, is there such a word, prior to their creating this word, is there such a word as junk fees in financial lexicon at this point, prior to this?
Perhaps in the popular Rubicon and language, but not in
There is not
the
a defined,
enforcement
there is
authority.
not a definition
Yes,
of junk fees in the financial lexicon like there would be for annual percentage rate, right? Okay.
Correct.
So what we've done here is have a director who, because he has no authority over these things, create a word. And then he twists his UDAP authority to be able to say, well, now we've got this situation where we have junk fees out here that we need to have somebody regulate these things. And now he has authority because he's twisted UDAP to be able to fall under junk fees, which he has no authority because there's nothing there to provide oversight. Is that a pretty fair statement, you think, Ms. Thompson?
I would agree.
So the fact that we now call them junk fees doesn't mean it's real, because there is no such word out there. And there is no such authority. So I think we as a group need to be pushing back. All of you here this morning need to be pushing back. Ms. Templer.
Thank you, Mr. Luetkemeyer. Directly on your point, the fact that there's no definition leaves financial institutions, both depositories and finance companies, with no roadmap as to how to follow that. I mean, like I mentioned, he calls into question resort fees and ticket fees, but also calls into question credit insurance that's tied to the underlying contract with the consumer. That very insurance product helped out millions of Americans that were facing flooding situations down in Louisiana just a couple of years ago.
I thank you for that. I know that yesterday in one of the political magazines here, they had a long expose on the CFPB as a result of this ruling. And they're talking here about the legal uncertainty that could undermine the CFPB as a result of this coming decision. It could put also their other rules in jeopardy. Mr. Watkins, do you see that happening?
I do think there is a possibility as they kind of expand their definition, things like junk fees, where I think the definition they seem to be working with is any fee they don't like. And when the definition under how they're acting is so broad like that, it raises real non-delegation concerns that could undermine their authority to enact any of these.
Thank you very much. My time is